is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated.
Commanders coach Dan Quinn stated that quarterback Jayden Daniels will play in preseason opener versus the Jets. Do you agree with the team's decision to play the number 2 overall pick in this game? Former NFL coach Jon Gruden helps out at Chiefs practice, decked out in the team's gear. Do you think enough time has passed for him to get another chance at coaching in this league? And looking ahead to the 2024 season, and thinking of the past legends who paved the way, who are your top 3 former NFL players who aren't in the Hall of Fame? All of that and more on this edition of Total Football Talk. Welcome, one and all. It's that time again. We're back for Total Football Talk. I'm your co-host, Drew Willingham, along with the EP of all EPs, Co Johnson. Welcome back there, brother.
Yeah, how you doing? It's good to be back. Good to be seen, good to be heard, and good to be with you, man.
Hey, same here, brother. Looking forward to another great edition out here in these streams, as today's main show's topic revolves around a team that I cover very, very, very thoroughly throughout the NFL seasons. But we have many things to talk about today beyond the Commanders and, their past, their present, and their future. But with all that being said, we're going to take this into the opening drive and get it started because we have some CFL we got to cover before we get to all that.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Break.
And here with the opening drive, we got to talk about what happened in Week 9 in CFL. And the team that had the bye week was the Ottawa Red Blacks. And when you look at the first game that we had Thursday, I think that you can definitely agree that Thursday night's game was absolutely you knew it was coming. It was bowling shoe ugly, bro.
Was not expecting this. Wow.
No. We've been calling for some Winnipeg Blue Bombers upsets here and there, and they now have a few wins on the season, but we didn't expect them to win 25-0 at home, especially against the BC Lions, who with Vernon Adams Jr. have been lighting it up for the majority of the season. The past couple weeks, though, they have been off. This is consecutive losses now for the BC Lions. Zach Collaros of the Blue Bombers comes in 295 passing yards, along with 1 touchdown thrown. He does have 1 carry for 17 yards. Not a whole lot of carries, but with that 1 carry, he did some damage with nearly 20 yards. Brady Oliveira, 100 yards rushing on the day. Took him 17 carries to get to that point, but the man was definitely destined for triple digits because he was trying to get there, especially when you look at those last 2 carries. He was gunning for triple digits in this game. Now, receiving-wise, he put up some good numbers too. 4 receptions for 42 yards on the day, along with the biggest production on the day coming from their receivers that really helped them out. Ontario Wilson, who's been one of the studs for this Blue Bombers team since they really have been picking up wins, 7 receptions, 112 yards on the day. And then somebody who out here in these streets, you don't want to mess with, a man with the name of Lucky Whitehead. Everybody that I know with the name Lucky is somebody that you are not lucky to be around when you're out there in these streets. And these people of the Lions paid when Lucky Whitehead was on that gridiron, because this man had 6 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown, along with their defense putting up 4 sacks on the day and 1 interception by Tyrell Ford. Very well-rounded team when you also think about the special teams, as Sergio Castillo, 6 of 6 on field goals for the day with a long of 60 yards. Holy expletive, 60 yards, 6 of 6 attempts. When you think about that, this Blue Bombers team 25-0 over the BC Lions. Then we get to the BC Lions. Vernon Adams Jr., 74 passing yards and an interception, along with the backup quarterback, Jacob Dolgala's 12 passing yards on the day. They were playing like absolute dumpster pelicans out there on that gridiron. William Stanback, 10 carries, 42 yards on the day, along with 1 reception for 1 yard. Not a whole lot of greatness out there by him, and he has been one of the anchors of this team during those 5 wins that they've had. He's been establishing the run, but not in this game, and only 1 reception for 1 yard. When you look at the Lions' defense, they absolutely sucked, Cole Johnson. 1 sack on the day. That's all they did. Didn't force any turnovers. No more, no less. Again, absolutely sucked. When you think about this team right here, the BC Lions, and where they once were, we were talking so high on Vernon Adams, and we were giving him so much praise out there. Past 2 weeks, he has fallen off the cliff like Max Kellerman was calling for Tom Brady to fall off a cliff many years ago. Look at what's happening with old Vern, okay? Think about this team, 25-0. They are blanked in this dumpster Pelican-esque performance. What are your thoughts on this first game of the week for Week 9 at the CFL?
Wow. Well, it most certainly also, most indubitably, was the we'll get to other surprises too, but I'll say this: the Lions picked a bad time to play their worst game. The Bombers picked the greatest time to play their best. This is what you definitely call a team win. When you look at what the Blue Bombers did, they almost threw for 300 yards. Well, their starting quarterback almost threw 300 yards. They got at least 100 yards out of their main rusher. They got a 100-yard receiver, and their defense gave you a pick and 4 sacks. Oh, and by the way, they also put a goose egg on the board. I mean, this and not to be outdone, the special teams. You have 6 field goals made from their field goal kicker. So all 3 phases dominated this game for the Blue Bombers. And for the Lions, wow. I mean, 2 games ago, we had our jaws drop because we were seeing yet another 400 yards in the air performance out of Vernon Adams Jr., and he didn't get to 100 in this game. Oh, man. I mean, it looks like a tale of 2 teams. I mean, they were offensively executing almost flawlessly the first few weeks, and the last 2, they have run into, it looks like, roadblocks. But I could dump on the Lions if I'm at will, but I'm not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to congratulate the Blue Bombers. I think I won't say they've turned a corner per se, but I will say that they have within them the will to fight, and I'm glad that they do, and I'm glad they can put together a solid game plan and give you a W.
Absolutely right. And breaking down this game, I was actually surprised that you clicked that specific button, to be honest, because there's another game that we're going to get to here in a little bit of a team we've been dropping the hammer on for
Mhm.
several weeks, the entirety of the season. But we'll get to them here in a little bit. But I'm not mad at you clicking that button either, because when you think about the BC Lions, you and I both were putting them in the same category as the Alouettes,
We were.
as a team that has fallen off the past couple of weeks, as well a team that I've been happy watching, the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I mean, these teams, we've had the Lions with those teams in the same category, in the same breath as talking about the greatest teams of the league currently. And we're not even at the halfway point of the year yet.
Right.
That's what we've been talking about. Well, now you could say we're at the halfway point of the year, but up until this point, that's what we were saying. And now we get to the halfway point.
Right.
And these teams that we thought were so great, there's only one that's really truly still standing, and that is the Alouettes. I mean, out of all those teams, they've only got one loss on the year to this point, the best team in the league. Now, there's other teams on the come up, which we'll get to here soon. But when it comes to the Blue Bombers, I didn't get a chance to go back and look at our episode from last week when I was putting this together last night, because we talked in the green room about how hectic this past 5 days were for me work-wise. But thinking back on it, I don't recall us saying that the Blue Bombers were going to win this game. I think we both picked the Lions to win, and we were both like, oh yeah, this one's going to be easy, if I'm remembering it right, along those lines. And then looking at this right here, I'll be honest, Thursday night, I didn't get a chance to watch the game. I've seen the highlights, but I didn't expect when I got up Friday and I was looking at what happened Thursday night that this was going to be the case, that we were going to lose 25-0 to the Blue Bombers. But it just goes to show, when you have good collective team ball, you're going to get the win. And, one of the biggest factors in this, you got to look at special teams. You got to look at the kicker, who put up, 18 points himself just by kicking 6 field goals, and, had a 60-yard field goal at that. So could we be talking about him potentially getting some type of opportunity in the NFL if he keeps it up? Who knows? But you can't bat an eye at 6 field goals on the day, and especially when you have one of over 60 yards.
Sure can. And yeah, he definitely contributed the most points-wise to this W. So, yeah, you have to give it up to Mr. Castillo. So, yeah, good job for you. I mean, you were clutch. Every time you were called on to kick a field goal, you did it. You did one from 60. So that says that you were locked in. So that's good there. The defense showed up, and they showed out. I love the fact that they're willing to put pressure on a team that lights it up on the scoreboard, that loves to pass the ball, and you were able to put that passer to the turf more than once. And when you can, and when you have 4 sacks, that only tells part of the story. You also have to deal with the hurries. And so if I see 4 sacks, I know I probably have to maybe say 4 times as many of those dropbacks he was hurried. I would say at least 3, if not 4 times as many. So I'd say, 4 sacks. I'm sure he was hurried between 12 to 16 more times, dropping back more. So you had pressure on the QB. You actually forced a turnover from him. And your offense was so on point that the Lions defense couldn't do anything against you. I mean, 1 sack, that's it. I mean, the only positive that you could probably take away from this game was that their defense only allowed 1 touchdown, but still, there were many times that the Blue Bombers' offense was in the red zone. So, yeah, kudos to the Blue Bombers. They came to play. They focused. They locked in. They did not cower, and they felt as though they were the better team. And Thursday night they were.
Absolutely. Now, look forward to seeing what can transpire from this. If this could be the type of win for the Blue Bombers that helps them turn it around. There have been other people, Ryan McCarthy out there as well as one of them, which hopefully soon, I think, if I remember right, next week should fall in line with when he should be able to come on the show. I'll have to go back and double check my messages and reach out to him, but I think the 12th So we should be able to get a little bit more CFL insight beginning next week if all that is correct, and we'll see that here shortly. But I believe, if memory serves me correct, back when he filled in for you that one day when we had to move some things around for the Inter-Out Sports Debate, I think he was talking about the Blue Bombers and saying that don't be surprised if by this point in the year they've found a way to turn it around enough to where they might not be clicking on all cylinders, but they're doing what they need to get done in order to get wins. And even though they don't have a 500 record yet, it's looking like they might be able to possibly turn things around. So keep your eye out on the Blue Bombers, and we'll have to see in the coming weeks if they get to 500 for one, and if they can actually make a run by the end of the season and go for a Grey Cup. I think that might be a stretch, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get it together enough to where they're at least turning some heads out here.
Yeah, and I think they could. I actually believe they could.
And we'll have to see. Definitely great takes on that. We'll have to see going forward. Well, let's take it to the Friday game. So here with the Friday game, we have a team that we talked about as top of the league, and that is the Montreal Alouettes taking on the Hamilton Tiger Kitties. As they reverted back to Tiger Kitties status, you've got the Alouettes winning 33-16 on this away game in Hamilton. You got the battle of the backups here. Davis Alexander and Caleb Evans both playing quarterback, as Cody Fajardo is still out for the Alouettes here. Then you also have the fact that, your backup quarterback, Davis Alexander, 262 passing yards, a touchdown, an interception, along with 2 carries for 16 yards on the day. There we go. It's a little loud. 262 passing yards on the day for Davis Alexander with a touchdown and an interception, along with 2 carries for 16 yards. Caleb Evans, 39 passing yards with a touchdown, along with 3 carries for 10 yards on the day and a touchdown. Walter Fletcher, 8 carries, 56 yards and a touchdown as well, with 3 receptions for 28 yards. Tyson Philpott, 5 receptions, 82 yards on the day, along with Charleston Rambo's 4 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. Alouettes defense, 1 sack with 2 interceptions by Kabian Ento and Bryce Hide the Puddin' Pop Cosby. When you look at all that, these interceptions out here for the defense, that was a contribution for the team by Kabian Ento and Bryce Hide the Puddin' Pop Cosby. Bo Levi Mitchell, though, 240 passing yards on the day with a touchdown and 2 interceptions. James Butler, 12 carries for 69 yards, along with 7 receptions for 41 yards. Tim White's 3 receptions for 45 yards and a touchdown, along with Shamar Bridges, 9 receptions for 76 yards. The Tiger Cats defense, they go back to the man who sells you insurance, Kenneth George Jr. with the interception, along with 3 sacks of the day by the defense. When you put all that in perspective and think about how this rounded out, of course, when you got to rely on the man who sells insurance to bring in your lone interception for the Tiger Kitties, things are not going to balance out real well. What are your thoughts when it comes to the Montreal Alouettes coming to town and defeating this Hamilton Tiger Kitties team?
Well, a defensive effort rather wasted for the Tiger Kitties. Lord have mercy. They put pressure on the backup QB for Alouettes, but it just wasn't enough. They couldn't come up with the key stops, and that's unfortunate for them. And the Alouettes had to play to the next man up. They did a great job last week in doing so. Now they have furthered doing that this week. And give credit to the Alouettes defense. They have held the second straight team to 16 points. So although the defense has not put up great stats, I mean, a sack and 2 picks, but another part of what a defense is supposed to do is to stop the opposing offense from getting into the end zone or even kicking the field goal. So they did their job from that aspect. In the Alouettes, it looks like they're digging deep into the next man up twice. So not only did the backup QB play, the third stringer played. So you had a chance to, I guess, witness how deep the Alouettes are, especially at QB. Again, I will stress this. Everything else is beautiful about them. The only thing I am not liking is their running attack. I mean, they rely too much on the QBs to run, and they need to have more out of their running game. Other than that, I would really love the Alouettes. I That's the only aspect about them I don't like. And as for the Tiger Cats, 240 yards passing is not bad, but the 2 picks are from Bo Levi. I get that you probably couldn't run the ball as much because you were down, and normally when you're down, you throw more. So I get that too, but not the greatest of performances from the Tiger Cats at home. And the Alouettes, this was more of a business-like victory. They could do more, and hopefully they will, but they still came out with a W on the road.
Absolutely. And, I would say this was definitely expected. I mean, both of us called this last week.
Mm-hmm.
We were both calling for the Alouettes to win this game.
Yeah.
Looking at this, I'm not surprised. I was surprised that we had a man with the last name Cosby in this game, which is why I had to bring in Hot the Pudding Pop. So now, looking back at all of this I knew that if I said it at some point, you were going to do some type of impression. I knew it was coming. So I had to do it. That's what I was feeling out here on this Monday. I was thinking to the comment section and see what everybody's got to say here in the comments. Mickey Delaney says, let's go. Wow, he was early. This is 15 minutes before the show was scheduled to start, and our apologies for starting a little late. I had some technical difficulties. Microsoft pounding out the updates, and I missed them over the past few days because I haven't really been on here. So looking at all this, definitely appreciate you guys sticking around and being here. This one was on me today. Victor Locks in the house says, what's going on, TFT Tribe? Let's get in the huddle and start our scoring drive right with the big game hunter of Dumpster Pelicans worldwide, Drew Willingham, and the EP of Owl EP, Go Jones.
Well, thank you, Harry Carey.
And thank you, Victor Locke, because I got to do my EP of Owl EPs today and be Harry Carey for the 3rd time in this episode. And that's thanks to you, Victor Locke. So shout out to you. The Playmaker says, TFT finally on my TV screen. Well,
good to see you, the Playmaker.
Guys been crushing it with Shooting Lights Out and with Monarchs of Wrestling as well. You guys, you and Cool McCain. So shout out to you guys out there doing the thing. Keep on doing it. That's what you gotta do out here in these streams. Sick Diggy says, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, as it is 10:40 p.m. where he is.
Good evening to you, sir.
Ike is in the house, says, what's up, fellas?
Ike. What's up, Ike?
Glad to have you back there, sir. Sick also says, it's not a jive soul, bro, but I could be a slickster in the flashy suit and Jerry Curl wig. Well clicked. Good afternoon, Victor Locke and Darnell. Playmaker Solon says the Sick Diggy, along with happy August to one and all. What's good at Mickey Delaney and Ike? Doesn't give a fuck. Victor Locke says, Mr. Sick Diggy, what's up? How's it going? And good afternoon to Super Hacker, Playmaker, and the Wise Man. What is up with this Super Hacker? This Super Hacker description. Where did this come from? Is it because he's part of the Broadcaster Witness Protection Program?
Yes. And when that was mentioned, I ran with it, and I gave Playmaker the a hacker type of image.
Yeah, I'm still like, I'm about a week behind on the morning shift episodes. I gotta get caught up. Life has been way too wild, but yes, that is definitely, whether it's happened there on Shooting Lights Out, that was definitely great when I read that. That got me. So good job, Victor Locke. You straight got me twisted out here in these comments. Bryce had the pudding pop, Cosby. Someone is a fan, Cole Johnson. We have a new fan of Hide the Pudding Pop.
That's terrible.
Welcome to the Football Talk, ladies and gentlemen.
Hide the pudding pop.
Even 6 getting in, hide the pudding pop. What about the Jello? Do you not? I'm not even going to get into it. Let's get going. That's it. I'm sporting Cosby sweaters.
No, Lord. So you had to mention Bill Cosby, and look at what you have done.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
You can't talk about 80s wrestling without the Doctor of Style, aka Slick. Am I wrong?
Yeah, and I guess I need to get some Yardbird after this. After here.
Don't you mean the Broadcast Protection Program, the Broadcasting Witness Protection Program?
Yeah, Broadcasting Witness Protection Program.
Yeah. Watch the Olympics. These have been fun to watch. Yes.
The Olympics have been, yeah.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to catching up on what we've missed. But we've got the men's basketball team playing tomorrow. I think it's at 3:30. Is that right?
3:30 Eastern. Yes, sir.
Awesome. So that should be definitely interesting to watch. And that will be a total
Surprise, motherfucker.
when they lose. Because Yo King is going to let you down either in the quarterfinals or in the semifinals. Don't expect them to get the gold. Now back to football out here in the street.
My God.
Had to have a little fun with that one. We don't get to talk football in here. I mean, we don't get to talk basketball in here. We are not a basketball show, so I had to find my way. He brought the Olympics. It set me up for it.
No, it's horrible.
Let's take it to our Sunday game and look at a game that was a toss-up for game of the week. I wanted to put it in there, but then when I thought about not only the team that won the game, the team that won the game for the game of the week and how they did it with how things transpired in the second half. That's why this game didn't make it to the game of the week. Looking at, let's see, the Toronto Argonauts, 23 points on the road against the Calgary Stampeders at 27. With all that, Jake Meyer, 287 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, along with the running backs for this team, for the Stampeders, 83 rushing yards on the day on 20 attempts between 3 running backs. Still, good amount of production on 20 rushing attempts. Mark and Michelle, 4 receptions, 59 yards and a touchdown, along with Cameron Eccles-Luper, 2 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown. The Calgary Stampeders defense had 6 sacks on the day, along with an interception by Demario Houston. Rene Paredes, 4 of 4 on field goals with a long of 51 yards. Cameron Dukes for the Argonauts, 177 passing yards and a touchdown with an interception, along with 12 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown. Kadeem Carey, only 8 carries for 31 yards and a touchdown, with 3 receptions for 20 yards. DeMonte Coxey's 4 receptions for 61 yards, along with Richie Sandini's 2 receptions for 34 yards and a touchdown. The Argonauts defense have 1 interception by Royce Mechie, but other than that, had a pretty quiet day. Cole, what are your thoughts when it comes to this game right here?
Well, my thoughts. I'm sorry. My brother Wise, what's up, brother? My thoughts on this game. The Argonauts need to find something in order to galvanize themselves. I mean, the offense played good in spurts. The defense played good in spurts, but no collective effort with both sides of the ball. And to me, I think they paid the price by not getting the one key stop they needed in a close game on the road. and the Stampeders, who I think needed to have the performance definitely on defense that they needed, and they got it. Putting, I don't care what type of QB that's in the NFL, you put a professional quarterback down the turf 6 times, your defense is doing something. So kudos to the defense. The Stampeders defense won the day. The Stampeders special teams won the day with 4 field goals. And the offense won the day because they almost threw for 300 yards, although they did throw a pick. Still, almost 300 yards in the air, almost 100 yards on the ground. And they were able to move the ball on the ground pretty well. I'll take 20 carries for 83 yards. That means every time they touched the ball, they were getting at least 4 yards a carry. I can handle that. So it means that the defense is on the sideline. Your defense is on the sideline. Your offense is on the field. You're chewing up clock. You're moving the ball down the field. The Argonauts needed to have those types of drives. They did not have enough of them. And I can look at that by the stats. The running game was atrocious. Yes, I know. The starting QB ran for almost 100 yards. The way I think you have to understand how I look at stats, when I see a QB that runs for almost 100 yards or even over 100 yards, I do not say, yay, the running game was there. No, because the running back should not run for that many yards. I'm looking for the others that are actually paid to run the ball. And when I see the leading running back getter, notice I said running back getter, not leading rusher, because I could say, well, the leading rusher is a QB. No, leading running back getter, getting me only 31 yards. That just doesn't cut it. You need to have that person bring you the W with having more carries and more yards, and not have it rely on an athletic QB running for his life. And this is proof right here. So you could say, well, yeah, the Argonauts, they as a team ran for over 100 yards because QB ran for almost 100 yards. Yeah, they still walked away from Calgary with an L, and they should have walked away with an L because the team is playing out of sorts, and they've been playing out of sorts for a minute. Other than that W in Montreal, and they have not really been in sync. In Calgary, they've not been in sync either, but I think this was a good game for them to get in sync. And actually, this is, in terms of a collective, it's the best I've seen them look, and I'm liking that. I'm motivated by what I'm seeing from the Stampeders, and hope that they can take that for the second half of the season.
Argonauts kind of reminded me of the Baltimore Ravens of the past. I mean, and we'll see if they've evolved with their additions with Derrick Henry and stuff over this offseason. We'll get to that in the coming weeks. But they reminded me of the Ravens in the sense of having to rely on their quarterback to do too much, with having to run the ball. Like you said, having to have almost 100 yards by your quarterback, but still getting the loss. Now, it wasn't like they got mollywopped because they only lost by 4 points. It was a pretty close game. It was going back and forth throughout. Mainly, one team was waxed in the first half. The other one was waxed in the second half. But, we talk about teams that can establish the run. And it's like you said, having multiple pieces within the running back room who can do that. The other team did that by having 3 running backs who rotated it in and out, pardon the pun, to get the yards on the ground in order to get the win. Now, did they get over 100 yards? No. Were their individual stats really something to get excited about, like you were saying? No. But they did enough collectively to get the job done. Now, with what the Ravens have done this offseason, if they can establish the run with their running back to take the load off of their quarterback to where he can focus on staying in the pocket and throwing the ball, which is what he primarily gets paid to do, then they're going to have better success. This team and the Argonauts need to figure that out because they cannot keep leaning on their starting quarterback, and that being Cameron Dukes, to carry the load. There's been way too many games this year where he has been approaching 100 yards or even eclipsing 100 yards on the ground as a quarterback running the ball. It's only going to put you in a position to get hurt at some point, and they have got to get this figured out at some point in the near future because it's not going to look good if your starting quarterback goes down because he was running the ball. Now, if he's passing the ball and he's in the pocket and it's just football that happens in that moment, then I understand that. But when it comes to getting outside the pocket, you are live. We are live right now. You are live in the moment. You step outside the pocket, you are a runner. They can tackle you just like a running back or wide receiver or tight end would get tackled. So thinking about that, they got to do a better job at playing smart out there on that field when it comes to their quarterback and what they have going forward. And now taking a look at what we have for what it was hard to call for the game of the week. And that is between two teams here that played Saturday night. And it was a toss-up between the last game and this game here. But based on how things transpired in the fourth quarter, it kind of tipped the scales for me to be able to make this decision right here. And I think Cole will eventually agree when it comes to when we start talking about it, as the Edmonton Elks put up 42 points on the day against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who put up only 31 points at home on Saturday, as Trey Ford was in the game with 252 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. In this game, no McLeod Bethel-Thompson at the starting helm for the Elks, and it paid off, as he also had 5 carries for 46 yards on the day. The star of the team, though, was Javon Leake, 12 carries, 169 rushing yards.
I love this.
3 touchdowns.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Sir. Yes,
And
sir.
then the man on top of that put up 3 receptions for 26 yards, nearly 200 combined yards on the day, Cole. Absolutely insane. And he had some help with the receiving core, as Tevin Jones put up 3 receptions for 123 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Geno Lewis, 2 receptions for 41 yards as well. The Elks defense, 3 sacks and an interception by Cordell Jackson. When you look at the Saskatchewan Roughriders, they've got their backups in because they are banged up at quarterback and at running back still, as the backup quarterback puts up 306 passing yards on the day with 2 touchdowns and an interception. That quarterback being Shea Patterson, along with 4 carries for 30 yards and a touchdown. 3 combined touchdowns on the ground and in the air, but not enough to get this team the victory, as Frankie Hickson, the backup running back, 12 carries for 89 yards as well. 1 reception for 10 yards. Keyshawn Johnson, no, not the legend who has a Super Bowl in the NFL, spelled differently, but this man put up 6 receptions for 72 yards on the day. And my man, Aju, 3 receptions for 60 yards and a touchdown as well for the receiver. Do what? Oh, you said bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you. The Roughriders defense, 1 sack and 1 interception on the day by Roland Milligan. When you put all that in perspective, Cole, what are your thoughts when looking back on this game right here and the Saskatchewan Roughriders taking the L?
And they had a 300-yard passing performance, 1 pick, but 2 touchdowns. So they had that. They rushed for over 100 yards as a team. They almost got 100 yards out of their main running back for the game, with their backup running back. So you had a decent output from your offense. But the defense, which to me has been the Roughriders calling card, just wasn't there. And man, was it not there in full. They allowed almost a 170-yard rusher, and allowed him to get three TDs on the ground. They allowed 250 passing yards in the air with 2 more touchdowns. I'm not going to say that they took the Elks lightly. I don't think they did. It almost seems to me that the Roughriders just ran out of gas. They seem to have a handle on things, and then all of a sudden it just left. And when it left fast, and it left horribly for them. But man, shout out to the Elks, though. I mean, they put together a beautiful offensive performance. I love it when I can see an offense give you give over 400 yards, and they do it combined in the air and on the ground. And when you have that, everything else goes better for you. The defense woke up, they gave you 3 sacks and a pick. And the defense, they came up big when they needed to come up big. And yeah, allowing 31 points, not all that great, but the defense was called to give you stops when they needed to give you stops, and the Elks defense did. The Roughriders defense did not.
You know, I did not expect this.
I didn't either.
Game. And that's why I'm not mad at you for clicking the button earlier, but this was going to be the game that I voted for to be as. There's not much out. Absolutely. There's not much out there unless it comes to like sheer disrespect that really twists me up out here in these streets. But when it comes to this, upsets right here, I was definitely not good. I did not expect this. When this game transpired, I was at work. It was Saturday night. I was getting pummeled. Okay. And then afterwards, I look at the highlights and I'm like, wow, did not see this possible at all. And especially against a team that I have been pulling for several weeks. That being the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who, like the BC Lions, who have now had multiple weeks of deficits after being a part of the top of the league. That's why I was saying earlier, the only team out of the 3 teams that we were hyping up over the first month or month and a half, the only one that's still really standing tall is the Alouettes. The other ones, like the Roughriders, the Lions, they're kind of falling to the wayside. Now, does that mean that the Elks are on the come up? No. They are like the team that I predicted last season for the NFL to start 1-7 in the New York Giants. They are just like them right here because the Elks were 0-7 before they got their first win of the year. And now guess what? There is a 1-7 team in professional football, whether you like it or not. The truth hurts. Whether it's on the TV screen or in a text message, sometimes you just got to be smacked in the mouth to realize that you ain't as great as you think you are. We never said the Elks are great. But looking at the 1-7 team here, what do you got to say? Now, as we look at the worst team in the league to beat the Roughriders, do you think that it is over as far as the hype for the Roughriders, that they can't come back from this, from losing to the Elks? Is this more detrimental to them than the Blue Bombers beating the Lions?
No, I don't think it is. I think what the Rough Riders have to understand is they now know that teams are going to gun for them, and even the teams well below them are gunning for them. So they now know they have to step up their effort. They can't just, and I don't think they did it, that they just roll their helmet on the field and all of a sudden teams will cower. No, I think their downfall this week with this game was, I think defensively they couldn't hang their hat on. We can get that one key stop, and we can take this game over. And they didn't get that key stop, and unfortunately, it just was an avalanche of, well, we just have to basically cut our losses. I think this was one of those anomaly type of things where it's like, okay, this is only happening in this game. I think we can be better, and I think this will serve as motivation. And believe me, I think the Alouettes W the week before should also serve as motivation too, for them to get better and for them to go back to the lab and really become the team that they were built to be, which from what I've seen these past couple months is they want to run, establish the run, pass off the run, and dominate defensively. So I think if they can get back to that, they'll be fine. And this is one of those where I think a defense coordinator can smile wide and say, You see why we stress the fundamentals here? You see why we stress effort? This 42 is why. This is something we don't want to see. We basically want to see 42 points maybe scored in 3 games, not 1. And when you have this, that just tells you need to work and do better. So I think this will motivate them. I don't think this will be I don't think this is a portent of things to come. I think this is a wake-up call personally.
I agree with that. That's why I wanted to ask you, because I knew that you were going to give me a great in-depth analysis when it comes to that take right there. And speaking of in-depth analysis, you got to read this one off, Cole.
Oh, Lord. I'm glad I got a good squig. Now, I know that this is Total Football Talk and not the morning shift, but I love this segment. Oh, you mean you love this segment?
This has been yet another Beating a Dead Horse presentation.
Where did you put that in there? Where did you put that in there? I've been waiting. That was like Christmas.
I saw that. I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect.
I've been slacking on Total Football Talk reels the past couple weeks due to my work schedule. That is definitely going to be made into one. Yes, because you just clicked the button, and then I was like, where did that come from? That was great. When the quarterback leads the team in rushing yards, one has to ask if the quarterback has any trust in his running backs, both on and off the field.
Drop that mic, Sig. There you go. Yes. And being on football teams, that is a fair question to ask, and more than likely it leans toward the affirmative. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate it leads to affirmative because what a quarterback is supposed to do is to trust in the other 10 to do their jobs. The 5 in front to protect him and the running backs, and to get the ball in the best places as he possibly can to the other 5. And if he can't make his tight end or tight ends, wide receivers, and running back or running backs look good, and he has to actually have that glory all to himself, you're going to have others check out on him. And if there is one position you do not want to have, that if there's one position you at least would like to afford to have the rest of the team check out on, that's the QB, because he is normally the leader of the team. And when that happens, the morale goes down the drain, and you don't want that.
You're absolutely correct. And, that's why I had to throw that comparison with the Ravens of the past, because hopefully with their moves this offseason,
I've heard they learned too, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm hoping that there's some more trust within that offense in their quarterback to their running back core. Mm-hmm. But this team that we just spoke about here definitely has to get on the bright side of it, because when you have your quarterback, that being, Cameron Dukes, running for what he's doing, the Argonauts definitely paid the price in this one. Now, it was only a 4-point deficit, but it was a deficit nonetheless. And against a team that coming into this game, the Argonauts were 4-3, the Stampeders were 3-4. Now the Stampeders getting the win. Both teams are at 500. So they're still looking pretty decent on paper. Right. However, when you look at the regression of the Argonauts, they started the season off pretty hot. They've been cooling off over the past few weeks, just like other teams we were talking about, like the Roughriders and the BC Lions getting humanized. This team has been getting humanized as well. So you're going to have to pay attention over the second half of the season to see what comes about when it comes to these teams out here in the CFL. The way D. Willie says, Roughriders.
Oh, man.
That is absolutely incredible, says Victor Locke. The Beating the Dead Horse presentation.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you.
The timing of it, too, because I didn't see it coming. It just came in, smack in the mouth, but one of those good smack in the mouth, though. I'm cool with that, okay? So there it is. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so far. Victor Locke, Sick Diggy, the wise man showing up for his one and done comment. All of you who've been coming out here and dropping your comments. The playmaker, Mickey Delaney, all of you for tuning in. Hope you can keep it coming. We still have a lot more left to go on the show, but we're going to take it through our first commercial break. When we come back, we have the Gridiron Scoop and much more. We'll see you here on the other side.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Break.
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this. Whether it's news, the largest egg producer finds bird flu in chickens at a Texas plant, weather, devastating tornadoes rip through the heart of the United States, inspiration, a breast cancer survivor completed the journey of chemotherapy and now begins a future one of matrimony or sports. Michael Jordan is shown on a photo with Diddy. LeBron James has a video extolling the virtues of a Diddy party. This has been yet another Beating a Dead Horse presentation. We got you covered. BS3 Network, in association with Comey Media Incorporated, proudly present The Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Live every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast, every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. New Kids on the Block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason
Welcome back to Total Football Talk, your source for hard-hitting gridiron action. We are back to talk about many things, and especially about the Commanders to play 2024 NFL Draft, number 2 overall pick, quarterback Jayden Daniels, and preseason opener, and much more. I'm back with the EP of EP, my man, Cole Johnson. I am Drew Willingham here for episode 49 of Total Football Talk. One great ride. We are only one episode away from episode 50 there, Cole. And we've had a lot of great moments on this show. If I were to go back and take all of our greatest clips, we probably would have enough clips put together to make a whole episode. Like, we've had some great times on this show and looking forward to another great NFL season together, recapping the entirety of it. And again, like I said in the previous segment, I would definitely have to reach out to Ryan McCarthy this week and make sure we're still on track, because I'm looking forward to picking his brain for more CFL knowledge, because with what we just went through in the opening drive, there are some other great points that he could have added to be like the icing on the cake for all that. Like, you know, we got Sam Shady out there who does a great job covering arena football. You know, we're covering all things football and professional, but out of everybody that we know, and I know some people out there that know some CFL that has rubbed off on me, Ryan is at the top of the list. So shout out to Ryan McCarthy today. Wanted to make sure I put him in the spotlight as we just recapped CFL. And looking back on all that, there's a lot of great things we still have left to discuss. And that being next, the Gridiron Scoop. This is the first of 2 times I'm going to talk about this man tonight. Shout out to the In or Out Sports Debate, episode 118 tonight with Kyle Nash, and the first ever appearance by Big Jim Nice of the Huddle Up podcast, who does that show with Kyle Nash as well. Got to look at this topic that we have first on this slate. And, Tyreek Hill, the wide receiver of the Dolphins, signs a 3-year, $90 million deal with $65 million guaranteed with the Miami Dolphins, combined with his current contract that guarantees him with $106.5 million over the next 4 years. Does he deserve to be the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history, Cole?
I really do like Tyreek. I like him a lot. Yeah. I mean, he's a great receiver.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
I knew it was coming.
Good receiver, no question about it. He's one of the best in this era. But to say he's the best to warrant having a contract of this stature, not really. But I get why. He has the breakneck speed where he can take tops off defenses. He can make an offense explosive. Just look at how the Chiefs defense had to switch up and change after he left them, and look how he has dynamically changed the Dolphins offense just with his addition. So I get why he's getting the money. I get why he gets the attention, and I get why people would probably think, well, yeah, he's a great receiver, and he is. But he doesn't strike you as Jerry Rice, Larry Fitzgerald, Terrell Owens, Randy Moss. He doesn't strike you as that. And until a wide receiver strikes me as those types of receivers, heck, even Steve Largent, you strike me as that, then maybe we could talk. But until then, no, I can't really say that. Not with Tyreek. And I'm saying that respecting him and his mad skills a lot.
I agree with you 100%. It's a lot of money to throw at the wide receiver for a 4-year guaranteed $106.5 million.
Guaranteed.
Yes. And the fact that, he got guaranteed an additional $90 million or an additional $65 throughout a 3-year span. So basically for this year alone, for 2024, he is guaranteed $41.5 million.
He's walking away with a bag, but and I'm not hating on him. Walk away with that bag, Tyreek. Walk away with that bag. You need it because you may dig out the streets. So yeah, I understand.
I will say, because if I read into this correctly, Drew Rosenhaus is his agent. If negotiated the contract,
So then that makes sense.
And yeah, because you look back on the clients he's had over the years, he's definitely made sure they got paid. Because you got to think, the more the player gets paid, the more Drew Rosenhaus gets paid, because he's taking a cut off the top as well. Now, the exact percentages here and there of what that is, I couldn't honestly tell you. But what I can tell you is, if Drew Rosenhaus is representing you and you're a good talent, you're going to get paid. So this man got paid $106.5 million guaranteed over the next 4 years. Is absolute insanity for a wide receiver. Now, does Tyreek Hill deserve to be in the top list of like the top 3 to 5 to get paid? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I believe that potentially he deserves to be the top paid wide receiver? Yeah, but not at this price tag. I believe he's being overly paid. But with what he stated when he was with Kansas City about how he deserved to get paid more, I'm with him on the fact of he deserved to get paid more than what he was getting paid in Kansas City, because things are overall structured pretty well for the basis of that entire team in Kansas City, except for the only person you really have that's getting huge pay for their position. Well, actually 2 of them. You got Patrick Mahomes on the offensive side, and you got Mr. Jones, or Chris Jones, on the defense side, which you got to believe he deserves to get paid with what he's been doing as the anchor of that defense as well. So I'm not even mad at that.
Yeah.
But you couldn't afford to pay all three of these talents and still keep them all in-house.
Right.
One of them had to go. And unfortunately, Tyreek Hill was the most expendable out of the three. But he is making an impact with the Dolphins. He's making an impact with Tua Tagovailoa over there as his quarterback. He's making him look much better than he actually is, even though Tua's no slouch. But if it wasn't for Tyreek Hill coming to Miami, Tua wouldn't have gotten that 4-year contract extension this offseason to the magnitude of what he did for 208 or whatever it was $1 million. We just talked about it not that long ago. So looking at all this, his move to Miami was beneficial for multiple people getting paid. It was also beneficial for him getting paid. I just think that I'm agreeing with you as well that I'm not fully bought in on the fact that he deserved to get that much money. And if so, at least not that much guaranteed, because who's to say over the next 4 years, because of where he is in age, that his production doesn't drop off. Granted, over that 4-year span, the most guaranteed money out of that 106.5 is this season with that 41.5 he's getting this year in the guaranteed money. So at least over the course of the contract, the duration of the contract, it's kind of he's getting less guaranteed per year, but the overall guarantee of 106.5 to me is pretty alarming.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's and you hit the key point for me. The value of Tyreek Hill is how he's making other people getting paid, or if not paid, how other people are now focused on as a talent on the team. I think of Jalen Waddle. We didn't really think too much about him until Hill got there. And now, since the attention is going to be on him, and it has been on him, Waddle's getting more looks. So you have that, and of course you have Tua, who now he's gotten the bag now. So you have all of these coming into play and all this coming to fruition. Again, like you said, it's not a knock on his talent. It's not a knock on his worth. I'm with you. That's a lot for guarantees, though. Whew, wow. That's a lot.
$106.5 million. I just want to hold half of it. I'm not talking about the half of that. I'm like $500,000. Let me hold $500K. I would be happy. But we'll get to that at another point, day and time. Right here and now, Tyreek Hill, count your lucky stars, your lucky blessings, and hopefully you can live up to that contract because, it's been historically proven. There's not many people that get paid we'll say triple digits in millions, like 100+ million, or at least in guarantees, and live up to the contract as far as the entirety of the duration of time. We've had players that do well the first season, drop off throughout the middle duration of the contract, and then by the end they start playing up again so that way they can get paid one more time. We've seen that, but overall, and especially when it comes to wide receivers, the big time contracts, by the end of the contract, they don't get anything close to what they received in the first one. I will say with Tyreek Hill, his first extension that he had, a year or so ago, because this is the second contract. Not maybe people realize this, the second contract he's signed since he's come over to Miami. He's only been there for 2 seasons. And the current deal was expiring after this season. He had 1 year left on the deal, which is why with his recently signed contract this past Saturday, everything adds up to $106.5 million in guarantees. So Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, has definitely been looking out for him very, very well to where his man and himself are getting paid. So keep an eye on that when it comes to Tyreek Hill, his production, and how things turn about over the next 4 seasons. Continuing on with the Gridiron Scoop, we have something else to discuss. There's been some people out here acting like some snowflakes about the new dynamic kickoff rule. And before we get to that, we do have a few comments that I do want rest before we go any further. And the playmaker's already messing with me, says, to mess with Drew, men's volleyball is going to the city.
Go ahead, men's volleyball.
Doesn't matter because Yo King is still going to get served the... This message is brought to you by The Real King.
Stop it. Get some help.
Oh my gosh.
That'll be real number 2. Sick is back and says, to say he's the best is a stretch. Plus, to sign him to such a contract is first and foremost an investment on the part of the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm. A steep one at that. Yeah. Yeah, because you have to understand, okay, how are they going to, with a talent like him, yes, and they paid Tua, how can they afford the others? Because that's going to have to come into play if it hasn't already. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to have to see how things pan out with that one, too. And he adds to that with, even if the Dolphins were to sign him to such a contract, could he be a big return on the investment? It's not even if the contract has already been signed. It was this past Saturday.
Right. Yeah,
here's my question. What's the Dolphins salary cap? Secondly, how much financial wiggle room does the team have? You got to look at, how things are projected. Like, some of these contracts are being signed in the future and for the future, with the money not really, like the amount that they're paying them, not really kicking off until 2 to 3 years from now in their contract, because there's expected income that's coming from different deals. And now that the lawsuit that we're about to talk about has been tossed to everybody out there who knows, because we're about to really get into that, there's extra money that's going to be able to be thrown around. So all that being said, right here and there, the salary cap's looking pretty good. Do we have the exact number on us right this second? No. But what I can tell you is that they wouldn't be signing these players, these extension and these contracts, if they didn't think they could afford it. This isn't the USFL going belly up in the 80s because they're signing people to contracts they can't afford to pay. Okay.
No, it's not that. No, it's not that.
Playmaker says, I'm done for the day. Need y'all to get through the show so y'all can join us for Monarchs. Don't rush greatness there, Playmaker. All right, we will get there when we can get there. This is a 2-hour show. You know that. We got plenty of time left and more things to talk about out here in these streams. Now, by the way, Cole, Snowman found the original Use a Troll and made it into a soundbite.
Oh, Lord. Oh, no.
What are your guys' projection for Tua and his concussion history still a factor? Because I think it still is. It's a really good question.
It is a great question. It's still a factor. However, what has buoyed him is that he did escape concussion free last year. So now if both he and the team can monitor his situation like they did this past year going forward, but making it even more of an important thing, because they've already said it. You get a concussion, you were twice as likely to get another one, and he went through 3 in a 4-month span the year before. So, yeah, you got to make sure that he's safe and he's healthy. But I know he's going along. Last year, everything was fine, and then the offseason before last year, he practiced falling. As he actually said, he practiced how to fall. Yeah,
he had taken some martial arts training and stuff during last offseason too. I remember seeing that helped him out with kind of being able to move around a little bit more elusively. For one, the Dolphins also made some upgrades within their offensive line before last season too,
and that helped
too.
Right.
When you see the results of last year, if they can do what they did with that offensive line and continue to elevate themselves and have, a great blocking scheme with passing and run protection, similar to the light of like maybe the Chiefs, because the Chiefs, when they fell off, the previous, like a couple of years ago, as far as their offensive production, you saw that it resulted in them not even getting to the Super Bowl. Okay.
Right.
They made some upgrades. They were back in the Super Bowl the past couple of years and winning back-to-back Super Bowls. So am I saying that the Dolphins can win the Super Bowl with what they've done? I'm not throwing that out there right now. But what I am saying is with the upgrades they made last offseason, a little bit during this offseason up to 2024, they have the potential to keep Tua upright again. And as much as they did with this past season, if they can do that, he will stay healthy. And as long as you have Tyreek Hill, no matter which quarterback is going to be out there, they're going to make the quarterback look good as long as Tyreek Hill is healthy. And all of that starts around that offensive line. Everything within the offense begins with the foundation of the offensive line. You cannot establish the run without a great offensive line. You cannot then have play action passes with great offensive line. You cannot even do your shotgun formation properly without the stability of your offensive line. So because of what they did within the work there, that's why we saw Tua stay upright more last year. That's why we didn't have any concussion issues last year. And that's why, based on your question here, I don't think that that's going to be as much of a factor as you think it is, unless there is a breakdown within the offensive line somewhere. And we shall see between week 1 and week 18 if that comes to fruition and if that stays true.
And to your point, the running game actually became more of a focal point last year too. Oh, what a surprise. Because the offensive line was better. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And Ike says he's still rolling over Bryce Hyde, the pudding pop Cosby.
Surprise, motherfucker.
I'm just waiting on a response from to everybody out there who has been dropping the dimes out here in the live chat. Now,
Lord,
got to get to. Oh yeah. Can the Hall of Fame game be scratched? Well, technically it was. When you think about the weather got it scratched. The weather knocked it out. The weather even said, "Oh, you know, the weather said this."
Hell to the no, to the no, no, no. Hell no, to the no.
Then it dropped the rain, the thunder, and the lightning, and then they called the game due to weather. Now, which I thought was adorable because by the time we get to week 16, 17.
It's adorable.
Because when we get to week 16, 17, and 18, and you have two teams that are gunning for a spot in the playoffs, it's going to be adorable when they call that game, or if they even say, we should call the game due to rain. No, they're going to still play. You think about, remember the game when the 49ers, several years ago, it was the 49ers and the Commanders.
Mm-hmm.
When they were playing,
oh gosh,
and they were sliding like it was a slip and slide out there in that field. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you really think that when it comes down to it, and one of these two teams at that point in the year needs the dub to get the playoff seeding or even to make the playoffs, you really think that ring, hey, it's a little unsafe than to be playing football out here in these gridiron fields? Yeah, let's just go ahead and call it because it's unsafe. No, it's not going to happen like that. They're going to keep on playing. It'll be a slip and slide, just like in the meaningless game between the 49ers and the then known as the Redskins at that time. And they weren't even playing for anything, but it was a regular season game. And the weather at that point reminded me of what we saw right here. It was because it was the Hall of Fame game, because it was a meaningless preseason game. That's why they shut it down. That's why I said adorable, because during the regular season, they will not make such a move.
No, I agree with you. No, if that was the regular season game, we would have seen the conclusion of it.
And before we move on to the next one, I'm getting Ike a couple of Cosby sweaters for Christmas. I'll even knit them myself if necessary.
Oh, God, not knit them yourself. Oh my gosh.
Even the good Lord knew that the Bears are an absolute dumpster fire. This message was brought to you by My day has been made because I've been able to click that button not once, but twice.
Even the good Lord knew the Bucks are justified. That Bears are justified. That is hilarious.
That was great. Keep them coming, guys. You guys are rocking them out here in these streams. Let's take it here to our next topic. That being talking about the dynamic kickoff rule. NFL's newly implemented dynamic kickoff debuted last week to mixed reviews. Do you believe the shade thrown by critics will continue and force the league to change the rule during the 2024 season?
I think the criticism will continue, but the NFL is basically going to be like,
you can't handle the truth.
Because they're going to be like, this is safer, this is more exciting. Look, we do not want to do these BS kickoffs where we line up at the 30 or 35 and we boot it to the end zone, and basically the kickoff returner does nothing but kneel. We don't want to do that. We want to actually have the excitement of a kickoff return and the safety of you're not having a 50-yard head start to simply tee off and hit a guy. Of course, that's going to be what regular NFL fan would want and will miss because it's tradition. And for those who think that we as sports fans don't like tradition, that's a bunch of bunk. We do. So when we see something that switches up and changes like this, belly aching will happen. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen because I'm sure they're going to probably think now with some of them, okay, so we can get rid of this crap, and then the regular season will begin, and the kickoffs will return to what I'm used to seeing. No, sir. This is the new normal. Get used to it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about players like Pat McAfee. You know, he would have loved to play with this rule right here.
Yeah.
You get him more action. You look at his highlight reel and the amount of tackles that he had and the things that he did out there with the previous rules in effect. I mean, this just gives more action for the actual kicker to be a part of. Now, some kickers probably don't want to be a part of it. And I think of some legendary kickers of the past who probably would be a little bit squeamish of this fact right here. But I actually liked it. It looked like, you know, it keeps things more interesting with the way things were set up last year. You know, it was just set up way too easy for the kick returners. Like they had a lot more open field to juke and jive and possibility of kickoff return touchdowns. If you get an actual kickoff return touchdown with today's newly implemented rule, then you are just that good. Because you were able to get through a lot of traffic to make it happen. So looking at it that way, you know, I'm looking at it on the positive side. I think for the future of football, it's actually really good. And it keeps things a little bit more interesting because usually when, you know, kickoffs would happen, that's like your time to go hit the restroom real quick. Okay. Nobody's really paying attention. It's kind of like the second or third match in the card of a wrestling premium live event. Okay, or formerly known as like a pay-per-view, you know, those type of matches, you're going to go grab your nachos and your cold ones, go use the restroom or whatever. When people are doing the kickoff special teams, you know, no offense to the people who play on special teams, the majority of fans just aren't really paying that much attention to that moment. To me, as time goes on, I feel like people are going to warm up to this whole new setup and get a little bit more invested and actually want to watch the dynamic kickoff. I am one with Cole who is not going to just throw it out, especially after watching only one game. We've only had the Hall of Fame game to see it. Now, by the end of this season, after seeing it more and more and watching all 32 teams utilize the rule within the game throughout the entirety of the season, could I change my opinion? Yes, we are entitled to change our opinion. But right here and now, I don't think that's going to happen. I like what I see, and I think I'm going to stick with my basic overall feeling when it comes to this dynamic kickoff.
Now, the kickoff itself, I have no issue with at all. I think the part that I'm going to probably lock horns with just a little bit, I think they said that now you can only do onside kicks in the fourth quarter and if you're behind. Like you can't do it while you're ahead and you can't do it the other 3 quarters. And I'm thinking to myself, you're taking some strategy away, but I get why they do it because, well, I mean, heck, you have all this field where the kicker actually can kick the ball, and where you feel where the other 10 guys are, they're lined up basically 10 yards from where the 20 is. So I get that you can't really do onside kicks. I understand that. I'm thinking that is going to probably change, not during the year, probably sometime next year, because I'm getting the feeling you could probably get pushback there. However, how the kickoffs are, in general, I have no issue with it at all. None.
Guess we'll have to see how things pan out for the rest of this season. If you guys are watching on Comey Media or on Sartoba Media for the first time, please subscribe now and never miss out on new content. Click that notification bell. Click that like button. If you would as well, click that share button. Every little bit helps us grow in the algorithm out here in these streams. We now have something we got to get to that is, one of my favorite times of the week. That's where we talk about the grand champ of the week.
Total football talk.
Where my dogs at? It's time for the grand champ of the week, and to give his first take of that, we must turn it on over to Go.
Well, I know that you all are going to probably look at me like I have an eye in the middle of my forehead, but I'm going to go with the NFL on this one. And I have to give mad credit and much props to Harrison Butker. Now, who was this player that you may ask? Well, he is the current kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he has been in the maelstrom of controversy ever since he had a commencement speech that he said back in May. Get him in hot water with the NFL until he had the highest selling jersey. Then the NFL, they backed it on up like a U-Haul truck. Well, now Mr. Harrison Butker is the highest paid kicker in the NFL, and I am so proud of him. That is how you're supposed to do it, sir. Take that power that you have, leverage it, and get the bag. So, Mr. Butker, congratulations, sir. You earned it, maybe with a little bit of IQ influence, not necessarily with the leg per se, but you got the bag. More power to you. Congratulations. You, your wife, and your family will be set for life.
Well said. You went with special teams in a contract to go with your dog of the week, and this one was tough, because there was multiple things that happened in this past week that I could be like, I can go here, I can go there. I kind of want to stick with where Cole was with special teams, but I'm going to go to the CFL and talk about the CFL for a minute. I almost gave it to the Stampeders defense because 6 sacks on the day, along with an interception, was very impactful in how they got that win. But because there were other factors in how they got that win as well, that's why I kind of steered away and I went special teams. To get 3 consecutive field goals without missing one is tough. To do 4 is tough. But to do 6 of 6 on field goals for the day. And one of those was a 60-yard field goal. and you had multiple field goals of over 50-plus yards, you've got a golden leg. And even though it's not solely the reason why you won that game, because you still would have won 7-0 without any of those field goals, the man still put up 18 points on the day for your team. The man that I'm talking about from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Sergio Castillo, from this past weekend. Well, from past Thursday, but still, it's part of that weekend of games for the CFL. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers won 25-0 again over the BC Lions. When you think about the fact that you had a field goal kicker who went 6 of 6 on the day, long of 60 yards, multiple field goals over 50 yards, golden leg, man, better than the Lehio Maehu kicking specialist that we've talked about previously for another team, but I digress. What I will say, again, 6 field goals is hard to achieve in a game, let alone not missing any of those attempts. So looking back on this situation right here and right now, I'm going with my dog of the week. I'm going with special teams as well. You went with a man who's signed a contract, a man who's been a very formidable piece for the special teams unit, for now 3-time champion in the past 5 years, Kansas City Chiefs. I'm with you on that. I don't disagree whatsoever on that. But I also have to give my flowers within special teams where they're due for a current situation, a professional sports team that is playing meaningful football in a meaningful league in the CFL for professional sports. They themselves might not be a meaningful team in the top of the charts, actually leading a division or one that we're gunning for, saying they're going for a Grey Cup run. But what I will say is you've got somebody here who's keeping you relevant, that being your kicker, who made 6 field goals on the day out of 6 attempts, multiple ones over 50 yards and a long of 60. The man did his job, did it very well, and that's why he is my dog of the week.
Well, I definitely not going to shoot you on that one. I thought you was going to pick him, actually. When I saw it, I was like, all right, I think he's going to pick him. So I'm going to leave that for him. But, I had to go with Butker. I was like, no, why not? And give him some props.
I appreciate that, my man. As you know, we had some great picks out here in these streams with where we were going today for the Gridiron Scoop. We still have the featured attractions, the 2-minute drill, and much more left on this show. But before we do that, we're going to go to our last commercial break. We'll see you guys here on the other side.
Coming up next, the featured attractions. This is Total Football Talk. Comey Media Incorporated, creating content magic in the real world.
In a world where chronicles of the past are brought to the streams, whether the content is relatable or completely beyond your realm of life, there is no shadow of a doubt that this show is absolutely full of shenanigans. Get ready for
D. Willie in the evening,
this Sunday at 10:05 p.m. Eastern,
exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $ D Willie 87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie the bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. Slide some Willie bucks.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commander's Gridiron Report. You want your commanders to be repped right? Well, D. Willie is your man. Commander's Gridiron Report. Every Tuesday at 11:05 a.m. Eastern, 10:05 a.m. Central on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J. Cool.
Where my soldiers, right side, commanders. Where my soldiers, left side,
Welcome back to Total Football Talk, your source for hard-hitting gridiron action. We are here for episode 49 today, August 5th. Commanders to play 2024 NFL Draft, number 2 overall pick, Jayden Daniels, and preseason opener. Looking at this game right here. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. We got to take this into the featured attraction. With the featured attractions at bay, we must look at Commanders coach Dan Quinn stated that rookie quarterback Jayden Daniels will play in preseason opener. Do you agree with the team's decision to play the 2024 number 2 overall pick in this particular game?
I do. From the standpoint, it sounds like to me, and I hate to say it this way, that doesn't sound all that good for one Mr. Daniels. Because I would think if he impressed enough in camp, he probably would maybe get a drive or two. But the way this announcement was made, it almost makes you think that this is going to be like a quarter or maybe even a half, just to get the chance to see him get reps on an NFL field and to get him a look as to if he is good enough to be the guy that you roll with come mid-September. So to me, if Daniels is thinking, okay, well, I think this might be my chance to shine, and it could be, and he could shine, and he could impress, and he can possibly win the job, I guess. But the fact that Quinn had to announce it makes me think they don't think you're quite enough of a starter just yet, and you might need a little more work. So I think Daniels has to look at it that way, and hopefully if he does put a little more work in the quarterback room.
I guess we shall see how much time he plays, because I was thinking very similar with what you were saying too, because of the way that it was announced. You know, there's a lot of hype. Me being one of them, saying that Jayden Daniels was going to be the starter week 1. And this right here, this announcement, and depending on how the next couple of games go in the preseason, can make sure that, you know, we could potentially see Marcus Mariota starting week 1. And I'm not happy about that at all. I'd much rather see the investment we made with the number 2 overall pick there in Washington start, because you hear all the hype with Caleb Williams over there with Chicago. Jayden Daniels was up there in the same conversation as Caleb Williams as far as the talent coming out from college here to the NFL, making a lot of us think that he, again, like he was drafted to be the future for the team, but that future was going to be now. So Marcus Mariota could be the bridge quarterback. We could see something very similar to what we saw, like, I'm not trying to compare it to Kansas City, but Alex Smith starting that first year, and then Patrick Mahomes coming in year 2. This could be very similar with how things go in Washington, as they still have other pieces within that team they're going to need to figure out. There's still some other holes on offense. There's still some other holes on defense and special teams. I am not one to say out here that this team is going to go on a run this year, although for the critics who are throwing a lot of shade on the team, I think this team will surprise you. It's not going to be as bad as a team as last year. I could easily see them go 9-8, even though I said that last year and I was wrong. I got a feeling that could be a lot easier to achieve this year when you think about the other pieces that they were able to bring in during the offseason to help stabilize that offensive line and much more. But when it comes to them not wanting to throw them to the wolves so much yet to start week 1 is what it looks like, that could also be a very good thing, because maybe Dan Quinn and company don't think that the rest of the team is up to par when it comes to the offensive side to protect him. So with that being said, go ahead and get your reps in during a more meaningless time where it's not going to be as full speed as it would be at the start of the season. Get familiar, a little bit more familiar with the playbook, because that could be an issue too. There could be more of an issue of him grasping certain things within the playbook, and that's why they want to give him more reps within the preseason. And who knows, after a game or two in a preseason, their mind could shift, and by the end of the preseason, we see him play less. That could mean something else, that they are going to gear him up for week 1. So there's still a lot of question marks that have to be asked, that I'm asking myself as someone who watches this team on a regular basis, not just because of the market that I'm in and because it's always on TV when it comes to their games, but because of someone who follows them based on interest. And looking at this right here, in the news that came out about this, I was very interested in the fact that they've already announced that he is going to play in the first preseason game, because generally when you have somebody who is drafted that high, especially one that you have touted to be a very big difference maker for the offense in the future, and you're going to go ahead and throw him out there in game 1, to me, just like to you, that speaks volumes enough to where they might not think that he is quite ready to take the reins at QB1 just yet.
You raised a really good point in it might not be as much him as it is the team around him, and maybe he's getting some protection because of that. And if that's the case, that actually bodes a little bit better for Daniels. Now, and the reason being, you have you have a coaching staff, and you have, to me, brass that's looking at Daniels and saying, this is your future, protect him at all costs. And it bodes well for him, because it lets him know that the team understands, okay, so we want you to succeed, and put you in position to do so maximum wise. And I agree with you. You had holes defensively, and it was unfortunate because you had talent going into the season, but you were seeing that the brass was looking at the pieces that they had, and they were like, yeah, I think we need to go in a different direction. And of course, bye-bye Montez Sweat, and then bye-bye Chase Young. One, you wince. The other, you're like, actually, that's actually a good choice. He needs to go. And nothing really replenished it. And you actually saw a team defensively get worse and worse throughout the year. And then you saw a team that offensively just could not get it together whatsoever, because that offensive line was a sieve. And so you have that understanding coming into this offseason. I get why, from that aspect, maybe this is a good thing, because it might be an indictment against the offensive line saying, yeah, look, the guy that was before him, talking about Daniels, he was put to the turf multiple times in games. We can't have that this year, and we're going to protect him from having that happen this year. And if you don't, it won't be him that'll be an issue. It'll be you, and you'll be off the team. So, yeah. And you said it early in this segment, early in this show, and I totally agree with you. Being an offensive lineman myself, the action starts, ends, and is an exclamation point with a strong offensive line. If you have that, the team goes better. When you don't, the team circles the drain. And you do not want the team to circle the drain with a porous offensive line, hurting the biggest prospects you have had at quarterback in a long time.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to, I don't really count Dwayne Haskins, as far as where he was, because he wasn't drafted as high. No. But the last time that the Commanders, then formerly known as the REDSKINS, made a pick this high, and especially with quarterback, was RG3 back in 2012. And we already know how that went. So history can repeat itself. And the one thing that was hindering that team at that point was they had a mediocre offensive line. Right. But what covered it up that year was the fact of RG3 being able to be elusive enough to get out of the pocket and extend plays with his legs. Now, Jayden Daniels can move, but that's not his number one option or even the best plan B in that moment. He needs to remain in the pocket.
Exactly.
And they already are probably aware they're going to have to make some more moves during the 2025 NFL offseason to bolster up that offensive line to protect him. So that's probably why we will probably see Marcus Mariota more often this season for that reason. And, that's what he's getting paid for, to take the licks. And he's going to take them this year, I think. Maybe not as bad as last year with Sam Howell getting sacked as much as he did. I think no matter who would have been back there would have got sacked as much as they did. So, and they made some moves. I mean, Nick Algoretti coming over from the Kansas City Chiefs, was a big pickup for leadership for that offensive line, but to help really establish the foundation of that line. He's not going to be as good as Jason Kelce was to the Philadelphia Eagles, but he's going to bring somewhat of that leadership from the Kansas City Chiefs and the style that they had to the Washington Commanders as they continue to add pieces over the next 1 to 2 seasons. I think that this line is going to reestablish how this entire offense plays, but it's got to be a part of like a 3 to 5 year building plan. Like it doesn't happen just overnight.
Right.
But because of the hype that was around Jayden Daniels, also partly by myself with my show that I have that returns next week, the Commander's Gridiron Report, 2 weekly shows. Bing! In honor of the architect of the Bing, Kyle Nash, who will be on the In or Out Sports Debate tonight. I had to drop that one out there. But when it comes to this right here, I don't think this is the last that we're going to be talking about Jayden Daniels, of course, during this entire season. We are going to see him at parts throughout the season, and he may start before the end of the year. I just don't think it's going to be at the beginning of the year like those of us, even including myself, had hoped.
I agree with that. I think this sounds really harsh to say, and this is coming from a guy who actually has a team where they started a rookie week 1. I want Jayden Daniels to start if all the pieces are there. But I think you have the right mentality. I think you probably do have to manage expectations, and that sucks to say. I can almost feel the bad taste in my mouth when I say it, because Marcus Mariota is the guy where you manage your expectations on. But I understand that you have a prospect that, yes, like you said, for the first time in 12 years, that is going to man your offense. You want him to succeed on the highest of levels and give him the best chances to succeed. And it looks like the front office has the right mentality in mind. They're starting to build an offensive line around him, and not just pieces, but build a mentality with the offensive line that they need to build around Jayden. And if that's the case, it's looking up for him. And I think that's the way I think all of you have to look at this situation. What can make him succeed on the highest level? And it shouldn't be like with the Bears situation with Justin Fields. Oh, we drafted him. Let's put him out there. Let's push him out in the field. And all of a sudden, he's standing behind 5 300-pound turnstiles. No, you don't want that.
Absolutely not. And it'll be interesting to see how things pan out for that team, over the course of the coming months as we are now back into football season. They play this Saturday, and many other teams do this week, as well as NFL football is officially back, not at 100% speed, but it is back nonetheless. And we are definitely happy to be back on track to discuss NFL football.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
Now with our next topic here in the featured attractions, former NFL coach Jon Gruden helps out at Chiefs practice decked out in the team's gear. Do you believe enough time has passed for him to get another chance at coaching in this league?
Enough time has passed. I don't even think it's about time, though. I think with him, it's about philosophy. And look, I dealt with him being a coach, the way he thought when he was an assistant in Green Bay and an assistant with the Eagles, and then the head coach for the Bucks, and then 2 head coaching stints in with the Raiders. I'm fine with them being out there personally. However, when you say things that are injurious to different pockets that the Shield wants to embrace as fandom, they're going to probably make it extremely difficult. No, they're going to make it impossible for you to return. So they do want to endear themselves, of course, to people who look like me. They want to endear themselves to the LGBTQ plus community. That's obvious. You've seen it in both ways that I've just mentioned. Basically on the sideline, adorning the end zones, messages that are catered to people like me and people who are in that other particular community. So you have that understanding, and then when you bring across somebody who he is called that particular section a derogatory word that you don't use anymore, that was used frequently beforehand, and you have him call the director of the NFLPA something that is inflammatory as well. And unfortunate, it was inflammatory to a guy who was, well, my culture. You wince and you think long and hard, and then remember there are countless email. You know this even better than me, because it's unfortunately your team had to be caught in the maelstrom of this crap. The NFL has all of that still somewhere in New York. They have all of that there. They're going to look at Gruden and they're going to say, yeah, old fogey, yeah, you know the sport, yeah, you have a passion for it, but good Lord, you have some views that will turn many of our fan base that we're trying to cater to off. And I think that is going to be the hill that he's going to have to scale eventually. And he's going to have to do a huge kumbaya and a huge I'm sorry and a huge mea culpa to actually do it. Now, will he be willing to do it? That's a horse of a different color. But yeah, enough time has passed. I'm not sure enough mending of the fences has, though, between him and the Shield.
You bring up a lot of really great points, and I agree with you wholeheartedly with that. I do have some things that I want to add to that, though. And some of this that I'm going to say does not excuse what happened whatsoever. First and foremost, the Washington team at that point, the culture was an absolute dumpster fire. And his brother was part of that as the coach of that team. And, you look at how, him being the coach of the Raiders and everything at the time, and the dialect back and forth, that is unprofessional no matter what your job is. Okay. It's not only is it unprofessional, it's morally and ethically incorrect. Like it's the, it's the definition of the way I'm glad that I was not raised to think along those lines. Like, because the only color I see is green because I love money. Okay. So people in themselves, their good and heartedness, how genuine they are. If you're a fake mother father, I'm going to call you out for it. If you are a liar, I'm going to call you out for it. And unfortunately, there are some people out here who I would consider brothers at some point who I look at as liars and fake, and they are along the same lines as I look at with Jon Gruden right here. Now, Jon Gruden is a Super Bowl champion, right? You could argue that a man by the name of Tony Dungy deserved that Super Bowl in Tampa Bay over Jon Gruden because the team was built and constructed by Tony Dungy. Luckily, he still got to create history in Indianapolis by becoming the first black head coach to get a Super Bowl victory, okay? Because he should have got it in Tampa Bay.
Yes.
So maybe that right there with Jon Gruden and the way his mindset was, that boosted his ego and a worse way because he took over the job from a black man winning the Super Bowl. Okay. That is wrong. Like, that is the way that he thought. That is absolutely incorrect and deserves what he's going through right here and now. I will say this. He has issued apologies, and this is not defending him. He has issued apologies, and I think certain parts of the NFL, certain layers of it, and now being the Chiefs is one of the first ones, have forgiven him enough to where they're giving him the opportunity that he just had. Because him being with the Chiefs during that practice was receptive enough by the players for him to be around. You didn't hear any flack from the players. I feel like this is the beginning of the shift of the tide where, like, in professional wrestling, remember when Hulk Hogan did what he did and said what he said? And, he was basically removed online from the Hall of Fame. But now, years later, everything's smoothed over to the point to where we're starting to see Hulk Hogan in the, Hall of Fame, going to big premium live events, still part of still hosting events. His name's still out there. I'm not trying to fully compare Jon Gruden to Hulk Hogan, because Hulk Hogan is definitely on a bigger level in his profession than what Jon Gruden was for the NFL. Because if Jon Gruden was at Hulk Hogan's status, then we probably would see him come back a little bit sooner than he has. But I digress with that. What I am going to say is this. You cannot defend what Jon Gruden did. Because when it comes to your morals, when it comes to your ethics, when it comes to how you carry yourself, the negative parts of you are eventually, that slip through the cracks on a daily basis, are eventually going to come to fruition if they are big enough problem. If you don't think or morally correct, you say of what Jon Gruden did, and especially in email text form, eventually it's going to come out. And, I am very big. Like, I don't like communicating in text if it's more than a couple sentences. But some certain text, and right here and right now, I have to look at this situation right here with Jon Gruden and say that his future, no matter how much he tries, is going to be impacted, because people are going to think back on that time. He's still not going to get a job. I don't think he's going to get a head coaching job in the NFL. Could we see him be like an offensive coordinator somewhere? Potentially, yes. But as a head coach, the man who is the face of the franchise, a man who is supposed to be the quote unquote leader of the team, do I see him being the actual head man again? No. And it's for this situation right here. And he, like you said, on the Hill, I think he died on the Hill that day that he had to resign from the Raiders. And he may still do other great things out there in the world, but it's not going to be as a head coach of an NFL franchise.
No. Actually, it probably wouldn't be for no other reason, age. But if you take that out the equation, yeah, I think he doomed himself by how he had to exit being the coach of the Raiders the second time. Now, you also have to put in the context, why the Chiefs? Well, look at the head coach of that team, Andy Reid. He got a chance to coach alongside Mr. Gruden on the same staff in Green Bay 30 plus years ago. So, they have some history there. And then when Reid became the head coach of the Eagles, Gruden, traveled along with them. So there's a connection between Gruden and Reid. So I got that. So when I saw that, he practiced with the Chiefs, didn't surprise me. I'm like, okay, yeah, Reid and Gruden, they have a relationship that extends decades long. Not surprised. But
absolutely.
Yeah, not surprised at all. But do I think he's going to get a head coaching job? I'm with you. No, I don't think he is. I think he'll be best suited to not even try for it, to just simply be an ambassador and try to basically be one of goodwill and say, I'm a cautionary tale of when you put your foot in your mouth and say some really ridiculous things, you can cost yourself an NFL slot. Don't be like me. Do your job and protect your mouth along with it. And if he can stop doing that, I think if he can start doing that and actually be a positive influence there, then yeah. And yeah, I agree with you. I think since we didn't hear any scuttlebutt from T's camp about him being involved, he might be starting to do that.
Well said. Definitely very well said with that. And Sick Diggy joins in and says, conduct unbecoming would sum it up. That's very well said, as he is still hanging out over there on the Comey Media side. Says some people are beyond redemption, but many more are redeemable.
No complaints there. I agree with you, Sid. I agree with you.
He also says the problem with communicating in text is that certain things are very open to misinterpretation. But when you drop the type of dialogue that Jon Gruden was dropping in those emails, there's no excuse for that. And you even said it afterwards. You said no excuses. So definitely well said with that there, Sig Diggy. And wow, Jon Gruden is as fake as people who show up in the comment section just once and then dipset.
Ike ain't wrong. That Ike is not wrong.
Ike is not wrong. And I guess those of you who are I'm gonna stay away from that one. But good one there, Ike. Good one on that. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one out here in East Street.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
When it comes to looking ahead to the 2024 NFL season and thinking about the past legends who paved the way, who are your top 3 former players who aren't currently in the Hall of Fame? When you think about Steve McMichael, right? With him just recently getting inducted, and that's someone who waited a very, very, very long time, nearly 40 years after winning that Super Bowl. 39 years, over 39 years since they won that Super Bowl. And what happened with him, he thankfully he still lived to see it. There's many other players that are floating around there during, your time growing up, late 70s, 80s, 90s, your formidable years, the 2000s. Who were 3 players that you can think of? Because I've been doing this like top 3 thing for the past few weeks. I'm really starting to enjoy it, but with thinking about 3 former players that have impacted you, that not like Snowman going off about his wide receiver that hasn't made the Hall of Fame, but you think about players that have impacted you. Even they could have been with the Oilers, they could have been with other teams that you have watched over the years. No matter what position, offense, defense, special teams. Who were 3 players in your mind that impacted you enough that feel like, in your mind, they should be in the NFL Hall of Fame?
All right, let me see. Let me start with special teams actually is a really good place to start. Now, Devin Hester got in the Hall, and deservedly so. There's been no more dynamic kickoff / punt returner than him that's ever graced the NFL. So I look to him since he was inducted this past weekend. And I'm going to go with Steve Tasker. Now, you're probably saying, well, he didn't really do returns. No, he didn't. But he was one of those players that when you knew the Bills were kicking off, you had to deal with him on one of those special teams players. You had to deal with him. and he was so prolific, he would get tackles almost every time kickoffs were made. And it was to the point where you actually had special teams coaches game plan to stop him. And this is not a kickoff returner. This is the guy to basically stop kickoff returners. But he was that impactful. So yeah, I will definitely say Steve Tasker. Another one who I believe should be in Hall of Fame, I'm surprised he's not yet, Anquan Bolden. I think he's one of the most clutch wide receivers in the past 20 years that I've seen. When I saw a game in the playoffs, I just knew that he would have 2 or 3 clutch catches almost every single time, and he would come through. And for the longest, he was languished with the Cardinals, and he would have these wonderful stats, but unfortunately, the Cardinals just weren't doing much of anything except for that 2008 season where they did go to the Super Bowl. But when he got to the Ravens and he had the opportunity to participate in the playoffs, he did his thing. And I think he to me is one of the most clutch wide receivers in the playoffs I think I have ever witnessed. And in the last 20 years, I think he is one of the most clutch players, period, just because of what he did during the playoffs, and especially that 2012 run. Heck, even the 2011 run that the Ravens had in the playoffs. And this is a sentimental one for me. Jim Marshall. He played almost 20 years with the same team. He played 20 years in the league. And unfortunately, people know him most famously for scooping up a sack fumble and returning it to the wrong end zone for a safety. But he really did do a lot of damage. I mean, he was an impactful defensive end, and he started a lot of games consecutively. And dude, still to this day, he has the most career fumble recoveries in NFL history. So, I mean, you have him, who I believe is one of the blueprint figures as to how you'd want a defensive end to be as a grinder. Normally, when you think defensive ends today, you think pass rusher and occasional drop back, a drop in the pass coverage, not too far, maybe like 5 yards off the line of scrimmage to eliminate slants coming across or to eliminate curls or flats to running backs. This guy was a grinder. I mean, this guy, you asked him to do what you wanted out of defensive end. He did it, and he did it to the highest level. And the fact that we're still 40, almost 50 years since he retired, and he has not sniffed the Hall of Fame, travesty. So I will say Steve Tasker, Anquan Bolden, Jim Marshall.
Great selections from you for that. From a question that probably isn't really asked enough, but this time of year, consider we just had the Hall of Fame game, and thinking about someone who waited a really long time, like Steve McMichael, to get in, I figured it posed the question. Now, I have 3 different individuals that I think you're going to agree with very, very, very well on this, and first of all, I'm going to start with Ken Anderson, still the leading quarterback in Bengals history. He's the passing leader in Cincinnati Bengals history. Ken Anderson is the best eligible quarterback that's not in the Hall of Fame. Anderson started 172 games during his 16-year career, leading Cincy to 3 division titles and the first ever appearance in the Super Bowl. That season, 1981, Anderson also brought home the league MVP with AP Offensive Player of the Year and first team All-Pro honors. In addition to that peak campaign, Anderson totaled 4 Pro Bowl and a second All-Pro nod. Upon his retirement, he ranked 7th all-time in passing yards and 8th in passer rating. Anderson is now subject to the senior committee, which has chosen him as a semifinalist, but not a finalist in 2022 and 2023. Now, one of our brothers out here in the stream, Snowman, is huge on Roger Craig going into the Hall of Fame. And for as much as he has thrown him out there, I left him off of my list, but does deserve an honorable mention, based on what he did in that time with San Francisco. I'll at least give him that. For my number 2 outside of Ken Anderson, though, I'm going to go with Torrey Holt, the wide receiver formerly of the St. Louis Rams. His production, it was just silly, man. Throughout his NFL years, 11 seasons to be exact, he never finished below 700 receiving yards. And in 8 of those seasons, Holt collected at least 1,188 yards with 2 campaigns above 1,600 yards. Okay. It's no surprise then that Holt was a 7-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time All-Pro receiver. He held a vital role during the St. Louis Rams' greatest show on turf era and continued to put up elite numbers throughout those 11 seasons. Holt retired with the 10th most receiving yards, 13,382 in league history, and still is 17th in that category many years later. Sure, he didn't always catch a bunch of touchdowns, ranking 42nd today with a reasonably modest 74 scores, but is that really the only thing preventing him from entering the Hall? Is the question that I'm asking you guys. Answer that out here in these streams. Now, for third, it was a toss-up. It was a toss-up between Reggie Wayne and Sterling Sharp. Reggie Wayne had Peyton Manning, for his career. Get him to the Super Bowl, this, that, and the third. But the person that I am going to go with for third on my list is a tight end. A tight end who had really great production, but unfortunately his career was shortened due to a neck injury. I'm talking about the older brother of Shannon, that is Sterling Sharp, for what he did in Green Bay. I know Darrell Owens is going to love what I'm about to say about him. Because of that neck injury, shortened his career to 7 seasons, Sterling Sharp is facing a difficult road to Canton. However, that context should not leave him out forever. In 7 seasons on the Green Bay Packers, Sharp paced the league in receptions 3 times, touchdowns twice, and yards once. He was by every metric one of the best receivers during his era. Sharp, a first-time All-Pro in 3 seasons and 5-time Pro Bowl selection, made 595 catches for 8,134 yards and 65 touchdowns. Look, if Terrell Davis can make the Hall of Fame because of his 4 outstanding years, and I have no disagreement there. I mean, I'm not throwing any shade, okay? Sterling Sharp should not be disqualified on longevity alone when you look at what he did in his career. Don't punish the man because he had a career-ending neck injury, but during those 7 seasons he was in the league, he put the league on notice. He also made his brother, who was a late-round draft pick when he came into the league in 1990, better because his brother's story inspired Shannon to get better, which is what got him into the NFL Hall of Fame, which is what put him on teams that won not 1, not 2, but 3 Super Bowls. And Sterling Sharp would have had at least 1 Super Bowl because the following year after his neck injury, the Packers won, and he would have been a part of that team. And they probably would have won when they played his brother's team, the Broncos, the following year, based on the way that offense was clicking on all cylinders when Sterling was there. So when I think of 3 players that I would vote into the NFL Hall of Fame who have been waiting a long time, I'm going to go with Ken Anderson, I'm going to go with Torrey Holt, and I'm going to go with Sterling Sharp.
Man, Ken Anderson pick I like a lot. And I think a lot of people sleep on him, and they shouldn't. You have to understand, you you were dealing with then the 49ers and the Cowboys, who they had great seasons. Now the 49ers weren't what they became. They came out of nowhere. The same thing with the Bengals. They came out of nowhere, and it was Ken Anderson who led them there. I mean, he had a wonderful season that year and years after. Great quarterback, no question about that. Great quarterback, and you don't have to talk about Torrey Holt. That dude was the bomb. Now, I'll say this in his favor. To me, someone that had a similar career in stats and stature would be Andre Johnson, who he got in the Hall of Fame this year. So I think Torrey Holt's time is coming because he contributed similarly in terms of stats, but I think his impact was just a tad bit greater in terms of stature, in terms of success, team success, than even Andre Johnson. So I'm looking at that, and I think Holt was going to get his nod. He's going to get that green. He's going to get that yellow jacket. He has to, because he played a lot to where he earned that distinction. And Sterling Sharp. Yeah, I don't have to say anything about him from the standpoint of Shannon has actually said that he thought that he was the second best Sharp in the family that played in football. He even said that out of his own mouth. Even in Canton said that. And I agree. And I'm a big fan of Shannon. I mean, I loved what he did as a tight end with the Broncos, and then later on the Ravens. But Sterling Sharp made Brett Favre's career. I don't care what you tell me. Favre was afraid to go to another receiver when Sterling Sharp was playing. That is how much impact he had on the Packers when he was playing. I mean, you can look at stats. He probably ended the season with like 90 catches. The next highest total would probably be like something along the lines of 45. I mean, it was that ridiculous. You knew when you saw the Packers come in town, you knew that Favre was going to force feed it to Sharp, and they still won most of their games. That's how much of an impact Sterling Sharp has had. So yeah, he should get in, not just with Terrell Davis, Gale Sayers. And those two had impact, and their careers were shortened by injury. The same should be for Mr. Sharp, because Sterling is one of the greatest wide receivers I ever laid eyes on. I don't care how long or how short of a career he was. That's one of the best wide receivers I've ever laid eyes on, because he did everything a wide receiver was supposed to do. Everything.
It's going to be interesting to see if any of these players get inducted into Canton in the next, few years. But definitely great picks by yourself and myself. And we'll have to see if one of our 6 combined players that we had spoken about today, if we see them coming to fruition as an elected Hall of Famer in the next year to 2 to possibly a little bit longer than that. Yeah. That rounds out our featured attractions. Let's go ahead and take this into my favorite part of the week. Yeah, it's that time for the Snowflake of the Week. And with that being said, Kyle, let us know who you pick.
Now, I'm going to sing your praises at the post game. So understand this is coming with criticism. And no hate, just criticism. But the NFL, come on down. That's right. You get a chance to sit on the seat of Snowflake of the Week because you had the audacity, with very little thunder, very little, and a lot of rain, you call off a preseason game almost 2.5 quarters into it. You should be ashamed of yourselves for doing so. And my partner said it, my brother said it earlier. If this was a regular season game, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't call the game. You would have to play all the way until the final score. But the fact that you decided to say, let's call it. So for those of you that don't know, I do a morning show you see commercials on this every weekday. And when I announced the game was coming that night, I yawned. You know why I yawned? Because I know the NFL fans don't take it seriously unless you, of course, participating in the Hall of Fame ceremony, which that is really the more important thing, the element of the whole thing. The game itself is an absolute travesty. It is a dog and pony show, and it is done from the standpoint of, well, we get to celebrate football again, and the best players are on the bench. And along with the best players being on the bench, a little inclement weather, you act as though it's baseball. Oh, come on, Shield. You know better than this. Oh, my gosh. Calling in the third quarter. Jeez. I almost thought it was mistaken. I thought it was either the White Sox and the Astros, and it was the seventh inning. Oh, it got rained out. Oh, okay. Wow. They put up a lot of runs. Goodness gracious. Come on, NFL. You know better than that. Jeez.
Yeah, it's definitely very, very interesting, which is why I had to make that statement that I made earlier. And I'm glad that you piggybacked on it somewhat to an extent to add it into your Snowflake of the Week. Mm-hmm. That makes me very, very happy that a segment that we discussed switched on over into the Snowflake of the Week. And for the Dog of the Week and now the Snowflake of the Week, I'm going to lean towards the CFL for my pick. And, you know, based on how this team started the year and got to this point, we spoke very highly of this team. We spoke very highly of this quarterback who we were putting in MVP contention. And for the past 2 weeks, he leading the offense has definitely fell down a steep, steep cliff. Now, I want to fully give it to him, but I can't. I got to give it to just the overall team, because through all three phases, offense, defense, and special teams, they were an absolute set of dumpster pelicans just running amok on that field this past week, okay? Let's just be 100%. As you know, whether you like it or not, I can be a bit brash, okay? And I have no qualms about it. If you suck, I'm going to tell you. If you give me your word and I see that you are a liar, I'm going to call you out for it. If you are fake, I'm going to call you out for it. And this team has been playing like a bunch of fake little I'm no dumpster pelican running around out there in the field. And the reason why I can say this is because you lost 25-0 to a team that I made a reel about because they suck so bad to start the year out, you know, for the 2024 season. I'm talking about the BC Lions overall. You look at what Vernon Adams Jr. was doing, lighting the league up, 300 passing yards here, 400 passing yards there, several touchdowns in a game. I believe he had a 5 passing touchdown game, if I'm remembering correctly. Looking back on this, Cole and I were talking about how this man should be the MVP of the league. Now, looking back on it, this man is not going to be the MVP of the league when you have performances like this out there on the field going forward. Not only that, it wasn't just all Vernon Adams Jr.'s fault. The offensive line played like the Commanders did in the NFL last year, where they were literally letting everything through to put pressure on the quarterback. Whether they were getting sacked as many times as Sam Howell did last year, doesn't matter. He was still getting beat up in the game to the point to where he only had 74 passing yards on the day, no passing touchdowns, and an interception. You couldn't even get your running game established, and don't even get me started with the Lions defense, because they absolutely sucked in that game, okay? When you give up 25 points and your offense scores 0 and you get the goose egg dropped on you in this game and you fall to 5-3 when you were just 5-1 a couple weeks back. And we were looking at you like we were looking at the Alouettes and we were looking at the Roughriders. And now we can't even look at the Roughriders the same way. You should be ashamed of yourself with how you performed offense, defense, even special teams. Kick yourselves all in the rear end because you all played absolutely terrible this past week. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how things go. Because when you go out there and you play like you're a great team and you're giving interviews after games saying you should be considered as one of the greats of this year for this league in the CFL, and you're contending for a Grey Cup, I soak in all that stuff. It's just like when somebody tells me they're going to do something and they don't live up to their end of the deal. I'm going to call you out on it. And we're going to have it back and forth like a 12-round boxing match if we have to, because it just is a reflection of how you do business and why something might have failed the first time. You got to stay strong out here no matter what you're doing. And the BC Lions aren't strong. Get strong before you lose your opportunity at the 2024 Grey Cup, because it's slipping, and it's slipping fast if you ask me.
That's some pretty strong stuff. Man, I don't know drinks was different than that. Man.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I agree with you. They've gone from 5-1 to 5-3. Yeah, the Lions need to they need to tighten it up and wake up, because two consecutive horrible performances. Yeah, if they're going to be a contender for the Grey Cup, they can't have these performances continue. I agree with you.
Absolutely. We'll see how things pan out with that. The Snowflake of the Week is over, and we got one more major segment we have before we round it out, and that is the 2-minute drill. Speaking of the 2-minute drill, this is week 10. We're going to recap. Well, not recap, a preview. And the team that got that big win, the 25-0 win, has the bye. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who are 3-6, now have the bye. When we look at Thursday's matchup on August 8th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TSN, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who are 5-3, travel to Ottawa to take on the Red Blacks, who are 5-2. Cole, who wins this game and why?
So before the Red Blacks had their bye, they had their best performance, and they get to host a team that I really believe I don't think they're feeling really good about themselves. This is a really good one to pick. This is a really good one. This has the potential to be game of the week. I don't think the Roughriders have enough yet. I don't think they've rebound quite yet. I think they're going to take another L, and I think the Red Blacks are actually going to improve on their performance that they had before their bye. So yeah, I'm picking the Red Blacks to win at home.
I think that getting smacked in the mouth the way that they did, and against a team that has been the embarrassment of the CFL, is going to be enough motivation to get this team out of the hole. I've been talking high on this team this year, and I'm not going to give up hope just yet. The Saskatchewan Roughriders, do not see them losing 3 in a row. And with that being said, I'm going to pick them to win the road game. We're going to disagree on this one. I hope I'm right, but I probably will be wrong just because of what I picked the past couple weeks. I'm still going to go with the Saskatchewan Roughriders as my team to win this game.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
Moving on to Friday, a repeat matchup from the previous week, as we have the Toronto Argonauts taking on the Calgary Stampeders, but the Toronto Argonauts are at home this time. Both teams are now at 500 at 4-4. Games at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on this Friday, August the 9th. Who do you have winning this game? Do you think the Calgary Stampeders win back-to-back games against this team right here?
You know, I have a lot of faith in the Stampeders. I think they're going to do well. I really do like what they have. They had a wonderful performance this past week.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, to the no.
No. I think the Argonauts will bounce back. I think they'll have that nasty taste in their mouth, and I think they'll rebound. I think they'll win, and I think it'll be ugly, but I think they will win.
My audio was cut off for a second. Don't let it fool you. I was laughing the entire time. Because anytime that you can bring up Bishop Bullwinkle in there, and especially when you're talking about a team taking the makes me feel good, and you know it chaps somebody's AAS. And I say to respond to who we talked about last week in AAS. You take that A in the middle, put another S in there, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, that was for the radio airwaves to be creative. Back to here and now. You have to look at this situation. And the Calgary Stampeders got lucky last week, I think.
I agree.
And based on how the game transpired, and the fact that this is in Toronto, I just don't think they're going to be able to edge out two close victories based on what we've seen in the other games leading up to this. They had 7 games to give me a good picture of how this team is. And this team easily at points throughout those previous 7 games before last week did this. We're going to stay on track here. I'm going to agree with Cole. I'm going to say the Toronto Argonauts win this game. It might be a close one again, but I think that they're going to pull this one out at home.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
And now we have to talk about a team that has been the top of the league doing great things. No, I'm not being 100% factual with that. I'm being a jokester with that. As the Hamilton Tiger Kitties at 2-6 travel to Montreal to take on the Alouettes, who are 7-1. Saturday, August 10th, 7:00 p.m. Eastern time. Do the Alouettes continue to steamroll this league, or do the Tiger Kitties pull off an upset?
Man, the schedule makers must have felt benevolent to the Alouettes. The Alouettes had an easy time in Hamilton against this team. I can't see them having a harder time at home. I think the Alouettes will go to 8-1. I don't see what the Tiger Cats can do to even slow them down, much less stop them.
Well said. I am 1,000% behind you on this one, as the Alouettes are going to decimate the Tiger Kitties.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
In our last game on the 2-minute drill, Sunday, August 11th at 7:00 p.m. Eastern time, a team that we just threw some shade on that I just did during the Snowflake of the Week, the BC Lions, who are 5-3 now after 2 consecutive losses, travel to Edmonton to take on the previously 0-7, now 1-7 Edmonton Elkamos, who came off a big victory against the Roughriders. Do you think they keep the momentum going, get their second win of the year, and embarrass another highly touted team to fall to 5-4, or do the Lions resurrect themselves, get their 6th win of the year, and get back on track towards contending for a Grey Cup?
I think I'm smelling the Lions licking their wounds, and I think they're going to respect their opponent and then they're going to go out and thrash them. I really believe that the Elks are going to be riding high. They played their best game of the season, obviously. But unfortunately, although they're coming home with this one, I think the Lions will go to 6-3. I think they will take that butt whooping they had in Winnipeg personal, and then they're going to take it out in Edmonton. In Edmonton at that.
I want to agree with you. But for the second time in this section, I think I'm going to disagree. Based on what I saw from the Roughriders this past week, their defense is a little more suspect than the Lions' defense. But then based on what I saw in a production with the Lions getting blanked by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the Elkamos putting up 40-plus points on a team that's just in the same conversation as the Alouettes, as the Lions, and that being the Roughriders, I'm going to go with the Elkamos in this game because I haven't actually picked them to do anything great this year. But I think even if this is the biggest things that they do, winning in back-to-back weeks and the most success that they have in 2024, I think that it is very believable based on what they did against a team that was at the top of the league last week. I think they could potentially do it again, and we'll have to see if that comes into fruition. I hope for your sake that you're right, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if my pick comes into fruition too.
Well, I guess we'll see. It would be great to actually see the Elks go to 2-7.
It would, because it's a lot better than 1-7.
Hey! Who's giving them the business?
Let's take it on into the post game.
As long as it's one. Oh, it's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
And here with our final segment of the show, it is the post game. And with that being said, for our closing thoughts, give it to Co.
One of the most overlooked events on the sports calendar took place Saturday, and it's even more overlooked when you have the Olympics happen once every 4 years, and it normally falls around this time of the year when the Olympics are played. So while many were watching if LeBron James can score more points than Michael Jordan did against Puerto Rico 32 years prior, he still got a gold medal, but I digress. A quiet ceremony took place. Oh, along with it also, you had in wrestling, the second biggest event of their year, SummerSlam, happening in Cleveland. About 45 miles south was a quiet ceremony, quiet and only getting the media hyped, but loud in terms of us as football fans, took place. The most hallowed grounds in all of football for a football fan in Canton, where the 2024 class got inducted. And it was great to witness all of what we got a chance to see. I only got a chance to see a little bit of Devin Hester's speech and most of Patrick Willis' speech. I think, and it's funny, we were talking about guys who had a shortened career and getting the yellow jacket. We mentioned Gale Sayers. We mentioned Terrell Davis. We mentioned Sterling Sharp needing to get in the Hall of Fame. Here's another one you can throw in that had a short career, only 8 years, yet he now has and now sports a yellow jacket, Patrick Willis. Of course, he was the former 49er. Great. And I do mean great because what he did at the middle linebacker position almost mirrored Ray Lewis. And if he were to have played twice as long, he probably would have gotten as much love as he did. But the class of 2024, I really was enthralled with what I was seeing. I love the fact that you had Julius Peppers, who it was funny that he gave a mention to Michael Jordan. Of course, they went to the same college, that being North Carolina. So it was great to see him. Of course, he was one of the two, I guess you could say. Well, actually, it was supposed to be the headlining name, but I don't think it really mattered. All of them to me are stars, in my opinion. So you had, of course, an old Broncos legend of Randy Grandichar. You also had Devin Hester, probably the best kickoff returner in the history of the game. You had Dwight Freeney, who the former Colts legend, made it basically a cheat code to have the speed that he did, and of course the spin move from the defensive end position or the outside linebacker position is still one of the best pass rushing moves in the history of the sport. Then you have the sentimental favorite, Steve McMichael. Of course, he unfortunately has been afflicted with the disease.
ALS.
Thank you. ALS. The disease escaped me. Thank you. He's been afflicted with ALS, and I was touched when I saw when the announcement was given to him. It was beautiful to see how even in his condition now, he was so aware of the honor, and it really touched my heart when I saw that. I was like, yeah, he knows that he's now considered one of the greats to have ever played the game, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. I mean, he was one of the defensive tackles in that 46 vaunted defense for the Chicago Bears in the mid 80s, and he was one of the most dynamic personalities I think I've ever seen in football. And then I'll get to my favorite, Andre Johnson. I've always said that he was all class and all man. Just ask Cortland Finnegan about the all man part. The one thing that I've always wanted about him was if he was going to get the love that he deserved, because he made average to horrendous quarterbacks look like $1 million. I mean, he actually made dung that was at quarterback positions look as though they could be Pro Bowlers. That was how good Andre Johnson was. And this guy could have been a tight end in past generations. I mean, he stood 6'2", and he was 230. But you can call any type of play, any type of route, he was able to do it, and do it with the utmost of professionalism. Of course, those who know, he also came from the U, or Miami. I'm glad that he is the very first Texan to now call himself a Hall of Famer. If I were to wanted to have somebody to have that distinction, it would be number 80. And although I'm as big a fan of J.J. Watt, and he's going to get his time to be it in. He isn't eligible yet, but when it's his time, he's going to get in first ballot. I already know. But if I was asked, who would you want to be the first Texan to be the Hall of Famer? Pro Football Hall of Famer? I would say Dre all day, number 80. Because he still to this day represents the Texans so well. And what I'm loving about this class is I can point to moments, maybe for the exception of Grandichar, because he came up when I was young, real young. I remember his name. I remember seeing him. But I can recall the others for sure, like this. What they did on the field. The dynamicism of their presence on the field. And that was great. But the presence they carried themselves off the field, and you got a chance to see it with their Hall of Fame speeches, it makes them even greater. So if you wonder why I think we have the passion and the love of the sport that we do, just think about these 7 gentlemen who were enshrined into the Hall of Fame in Canton. All of them, they may be Pro Football Hall of Fame elite, but in my opinion, better than that, those are 7 great men. So congratulations to you. An honor well deserved. So glad that you all represented the class of football, but the class of men that you all are, and the caliber of men that you have been, that you are now, and that you continue to be.
Very well said. Very well said. Going back and, circling back around with the Hall of Fame inductions, bringing up what you did with Steve McMichael, and especially being able to take a minute to discuss, Hall of Fame induction for somebody who helped establish the name for the Houston Texans. Definitely deserves to be the first inductee. So wanted to give you your flowers while I had the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, as always.
And thank you for reminding me of ALS, because doggone it, the disease that Michaels has. What is it? What is it?
No, you're absolutely right. And, there's many things that are going on within the game of football, and it's just like how sports can roll into life, and certain situations in football can remind you of things in life, and certain things in life can remind you of football. I think of what's going on in Minnesota in their quarterback position. Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy, how there's been a lot of excuses thrown around for many, many years when it comes to Sam Darnold. There's one thing that, besides a liar, that really chaps my rear end, is somebody who comes up with excuses and is fake as you know what when you call them out. And that's what we have here with Sam Darnold. That's what we have here with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold reminds me of certain people out here who should be elevated a little bit higher in what they're doing, but they got too many excuses that they throw out there, and it's why something might have failed the first time, and you're just getting it running and rolling again. Okay? Sam Darnold is the same as you, and that's 100% real. Okay? When it comes to Sam Darnold. Now, let's throw some wise things out there when it comes to Sam Darnold out here in these streets. Being drafted in New York. You know what? Right there, I'm not going to throw so much shade on him because he was drafted to a pretty bad situation. It's been pretty evident about that. You look at how Aaron Rodgers' production was last year. Only made it through 4 plays and then was getting hurt. Okay. Then he goes to San Francisco. And, of course, he had his little tenure in Carolina. I shouldn't really count San Francisco because he was the backup. But you think about what happened in Carolina. He's bounced around enough. He's not even at 30 years old yet. And now he's with the Minnesota Vikings. A team that, regardless if they had J.J. McCarthy or not, you should be thinking about Sam Darnold as the starting mother-fathering quarterback. But guess what? He's about to lose the job to a rookie quarterback who, yes, is a national champion with Michigan. And yes, was drafted in the first round like Sam Darnold. And yes, there is some qualms about both quarterbacks here. But what I have to say is this. A lot of things that I've heard from Sam Darnold and his cap about the results that he has had in the NFL has been nothing short of excuses. Kind of like a fake little snowflake when you confront them on something that they said and then they are nowhere to be found with a response. Right here and now, when it comes to Sam Darnold, this is it for him in the NFL. He loses this job to J.J. McCarthy, there is no fifth opportunity. Can't really say fifth, maybe fourth, because he's had 4 other opportunities before, but I still can't really count San Francisco because it wasn't like he was brought in there to be the starting quarterback. It was New York, it was Carolina, and it was now here in Minnesota that he was touted to be the starter. If he can't go and he can't be the starter because J.J. McCarthy beats him out, it's it. You might as well sign him up for the UFL, the CFL, somewhere else. It's an FL besides the NFL. Because, again, the NFL can stand for not for long if you can't put your money where your mouth is. Okay? Meaning, to those of you who aren't following, your production where the hype is. When somebody is knocking on your door and you sell them a bill of goods, and then you cower and you don't even have the cojones to tell them, you don't even have the cojones to tell them the truth. And he doesn't have the cojones to show them the truth by the level of production that he can put forth out here on the gridiron. He's not doing it, and you aren't doing it either. Now, we'll see if that's the case for Sam Darnold in 2024. If that's the case for the Minnesota Vikings, we shall see if what I'm saying is true or misconstrued here for my final take out here for episode 49. That does it for our post game. That does it for episode 49. That does it for this week's edition of Total Football Talk. But we do have one final thing, and that is for the EP of all EPs to take us home.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Well, we appreciate you as always for liking, for sharing, for subscribing, for commenting. Thank you, TFT Tribe. We definitely appreciate you. And thank you for the comments that you present to us through Sertola Media and Comey Media Incorporated as well. We totally appreciate the love and the support. We thank you. And if you want to reach us, all you have to do is the following. To reach my man Drew, you can reach him on Instagram at Sertoba_media, at X at Sertoba_media, at TikTok at _Sertoba, and of course at YouTube at Sertoba Media.
Go to work.
And if you want to reach me, all you have to do is to go to flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. That is flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. Well, that does it for us at Total Football Talk. We thank you so much for being a part of the tribe. Now, for Drew Willingham, I am Cole Johnson, here to say in parting, as we always do. In life, just like a tackle, keep your head up. And always remember, you got to play until the whistle blows.
And as always, stay safe out here in these streets. Take yourself home, sugar.